Star Wars 7x7 episode 3097. I think this is being recorded on Christmas Eve, and we are still without power as of Christmas Eve, and I don't know when we're getting it back, so hopefully soon, fingers crossed. This is going to be another one of those unusual episodes, but hey, let's roll with it. So I was talking about Christmas in the Stars on Christmas Eve with you, and so one of the things that came up because of the fact that I was doing the research on my phone and trying to, dig up information about it just to refresh my memory on some things. And there have been so many articles written about Christmas in the Stars in the last decade or so. And I was actually rather stunned. So it seems like a couple of them have been revisiting it every so often, oh yeah, we need some Christmas content and we need to do something for the Star Wars audiences. So yeah, let's revisit Christmas in the Stars. And so, sometimes it's a really deep dive kind of situation. Like one of the articles I found, and I think I've referenced in previous episodes of the podcast, is a quote unquote first ever oral history of Christmas in the Stars that was published in 2014. And has interviews with so many people. There's a thing about how in Forbes magazine that John Bon Jovi for years wouldn't say anything about his involvement in the Star Wars Christmas album, and he finally admitted in an interview in Forbes that he had been a part of it, although he said that it was like a racket or something like that. And I mean, I don't know if that quite puts it exactly correctly, but yeah, I guess there are multiple ways to look at it from certain points of view. And then there are the kinds of articles like the folks that do the Dagobah Dispatch podcast for Entertainment Weekly. They actually got together this year and listened to all the tracks on Christmas in the Stars, and they each listed their comments and feedback about them. Some of them they actually really like, and some of them they think are really terrible. And yeah, it's probably an accurate assessment about the album itself. So what I ended up doing is I started collecting a list of articles that either do deep dive analyses of Christmas in the Stars or ones that feature interviews with people who were involved with Christmas in the Stars. And so that's what I've got in the show notes for today's episode. I just find this endlessly fascinating. And so I just thought, all right, let's look at some of the articles that are especially cool. Some of them are linked from Wikipedia, and some of them are just available if you decide to dig deep enough in Google searches. And there's even a 10 Things You Didn't Know About Christmas in the Stars article that was published in 2018 on StarWars.com. And I actually think I mentioned a thing or two from that article when we were talking about this over at Christmas Eve. But I will link to that one as well. It's fun to see it acknowledged in the official Star Wars blogging capacity. It's one of those things where, I know that they've taken elements from the Star Wars Holiday Special and they've worked them into actual canon. Like Life Day is still a thing, and the Wookiees do wear those red robes and have those glowing orbs for Life Day, so that is now part of the official Star Wars storytelling. I don't know if anything has been made official from Christmas in the Stars, if it has been added to the canon or the new canon as it were, but the songs reference things Albert Einstein gets mentioned in one of the songs, for example, and there are a couple of other contemporary references, if you will. So, it's an unusual bird in that way, but knowing, somebody like Pablo Hidalgo, he'll be probably advocating for some, little tiny detail that's mentioned somewhere to get worked into a comic somewhere, and then it suddenly becomes an official thing. So if you're just hanging out waiting in a long line at the store for day after Christmas sales, or you're just cooling your heels at home and want something to check out, I've got what I hope is a really fun set of resources for you to check out about Christmas in the Stars, and you might as well check it out while you listen to the album too, if you haven't listened to it already. If you did give it a listen, I would love to know what you thought about it, whether you knew about it before and heard it previously, or whether this was a first time. Please let me know what you think. At YouTube, just, time in the comments right there. And I would say hit me up on Instagram or Twitter and let me know what you think there. Right now, posting to our website, sw7x7.com, is a little bit difficult for the moment, but yeah, we'll have it all back up and running hopefully soon. And that's what I've got for you on today's episode of the podcast. Thank you so much for your patience with me while we do things a little differently here due to the power outage. And yeah, just keep your fingers crossed. I hope things are safe and warm wherever you are in the world. And yeah, that's it. So it just remains for me to say thank you so much for joining me for this episode as always. And may the force be with you wherever in the world you may be.